So I fell for a scam at the adult store I work at. This happened maybe almost 2 weeks ago, I guess, or a week and a half ago. It was on a Saturday. And it's embarrassing. I really did not think I would talk about it on here, but then I started thinking more about it and thought, well, these scams suck. These people doing these things are probably, you hear about how these people sit in these places in other countries doing these things. I'm not saying they're always in other countries. I'm in the United States, but they get together apparently in networks and do these things and plan them out. And this one was very clever, and being that I've never really worked in a place alone a lot, we work alone usually. Most of the time at the adult store, we're working on a shift alone. When we take our lunch, we lock the door. And I think what's more embarrassing is how long they kept me going on this scam. And it was almost like I was just, well, I've always thought throughout the years with my mental illness issues and things like that, that my common sense is not always very good. I'm intelligent. I do think quite intelligent at times, but still sometimes I feel like I could lack common sense. But at the same time, I feel like when dark people do things sometimes, it's almost like they can hypnotize you, like I believe in the metaphysical world too, because so many crazy paranormal things have happened to me. I think sometimes when you encounter really dark individuals doing nefarious things, a lot of times it's like they can almost put a spell on you, and then you trust them. And later, when you find out they were full of shit or whatever, you feel stupid. In this situation, I felt very stupid. I still have my job. The interesting thing is with what I'm going to tell you what happened, and it's absolutely crazy in ways. They really didn't get on to me that much. We just have new policies or stronger policies now with dealing with this sort of thing. So basically what happened, I think it was a week and a half ago on a Saturday night, I was by myself, and the night had been going great. Everything had been going well. And basically someone called, and this guy said, this is how they set it up. He said he was with FedEx, and that there were some important documents that we were going to get the next morning. They had to do with licensing and had to do with fire codes. And it sounded official to me because we are opening a new store. We're in the midst of opening a new store across town, and we do need to do things to get the store open. So I don't know if these people are on to this. They probably do research on the places they're going to scam. So maybe they're aware that we're opening a new place. I'm sure some planning goes into who they target. But anyway, this guy says he's with FedEx, and to take down some codes about these documents we're getting, and just let my manager know, let my GM know the next morning. So it sounds innocent. That's the end of the phone call. But then another man calls, and he says, hi. He sounds real official, tells me a name, and that he is the owner of the company. Well, the thing is, I did not know, I know now, but I did not know who the owner of this company was. And I'm not blaming the company I'm working for. I mean, nowadays it seems a lot of places you work for just don't, it's probably because of high turnover, they just don't do orientation much. They train you pretty quick and get you going. And that was the case at this job, where you don't know much background on the company. You kind of learn a little bit as you go. You don't know who the higher ups really are. So I did not know, and this guy sounded official, like he was the owner. And I've also worked for very chaotic places before, where managers would do crazy things. They'd call you in the middle of the night, or they would do other things you wouldn't think they would do. I've worked for managers that were real narcissistic and did all kinds of crazy stuff. So that might be also why I didn't think a lot about it. But anyway, he sounds innocent too at first, with just asking me if a FedEx guy called. And I was like, yeah, he called. And he's like, oh, that's great. And did he give you some codes? It's very important we get this taken care of with the fire codes and with this licensing stuff. And can you give me those codes? And so I did. And then he asked me something random, like taking a picture of the fire hydrant we had, of a paper that's on the fire hydrant with stuff on it. That sounded official, so he could compare it to, I guess, whatever he's supposed to get from FedEx, from supposed FedEx. So anyway, I do that. He wants me to send that to him, to the number he gave me, and to his cell phone he gave me. And I thought nothing of it. He said, okay, the GM will be dealing with this in the morning. Everything's fine. That's how they set it up, making everything sound like it's cut and dry, just letting me know about this stuff. I think that's it. FedEx guy calls back. He says there's a problem with the delivery, and that that our GM wrote a check, that he wrote a check for this stuff to be delivered, and now that check, he just found out, he's like, we just found out at FedEx this check, of course, can't go through. We can't take a check. And he asked me, can you get the owner? We understand that the owner had contacted you, and can you get him on your cell phone? Because I'm talking to the FedEx guy on the company phone. Can you call him on your cell phone? It's very important you do this, because we need to get this settled now, or we're going to have to cancel this. And it's very important we know that you get these documents. So I'm irritated by the whole thing, because it's like 10:30 at night. I close at midnight. Everything had been going smooth that night. But I really didn't have a clue. I mean, the thing about this is, if I'd had somebody else working with me, and I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying if I did, I'm sure when I would mention it to a coworker, they might have buffered the whole situation by saying, hey, maybe we should double check with the regional manager, or maybe we should double check with the GM or something like that. For some reason, that just did not register in my mind, because everything, the way they set it up with acting like things were okay and now they're suddenly not, and you got two people doing this whole coordinated thing. So yeah, I call this guy that says he's the owner on his cell phone and tell him what's going on. Of course, he acts shocked, he acts surprised. He said, oh, it's so important we get these documents. And he gets my name, and he says, can you help me out? Can you tell the FedEx guy that, is there anything we can do? We can pay in the morning, we can pay the driver, we can take care of it as soon as it gets there. And then the FedEx guy acts like, no, there's no way. He kind of acts irritated with, no, this has to be done now, because if it's not, we're going to have to cancel it and whatever. So it just goes back and forth like that. And finally, the owner guy's like, well, what can we do? And the FedEx guy's like, well, you need to pay this tonight, or it's just going to be canceled. So the owner asked me how much money we have on hand. And he asked me about what's in the cash drawer. And we don't have access to a safe, but we have access to our cash drawer. And we have access to an area where we have change. And basically, I had access to like $700, which luckily that's all I had access to. It could have been a lot more. I mean, it could have been like, because it was a weekend, I taken a lot of credit cards. I hadn't taken any cash, fortunately, or I hadn't taken a lot of cash. So that's what I had. And as dumb as it sounds, I know it sounds stupid when I talk about it, but I imagine I know one other person in our company has fallen for it. So, but I'm sure tons of others have too. It's just a matter to extent before they caught on. That's where I'm really disappointed with myself, is not catching on very quick. I mean, this went pretty far. So anyway, he convinces me to lock the store and to leave with this money, and to take it. He said the best thing to do, which now this sounds ignorant to me, but I didn't know nothing about this sort of thing. He says it'll be easiest to deposit it in a Bitcoin thing, and then that way we'll be able to get it right over to them. I mean, I look back at all this stuff now, and it does sound suspicious, but I'm just thinking, when I told my therapist about this stuff, as I was telling her about it and how stupid I felt about it, she just said, well, she's telling me how she almost fell for a scam too, which I may get to that later. And she said, and what she was telling me, it sounded crazy too. She said, look, this stuff happens all the time, and you thought you were helping. And honestly, I just, in my mind, it's like I was hypnotized. That's why I said, maybe, as crazy as it sounds, sometimes I think metaphysical elements can play into this stuff too. It's like really dark people, criminal element, people that do criminal things like this, they probably do this for a living. There's a darkness to them, real darkness to them. You could almost say it's like black magic in a way. I'm not saying they're literally sitting there performing black magic on a person, but I think that darkness sometimes can just get a hold of you and you just don't think straight. And that was the case with me, and lacking the common sense, I felt like, but I thought I was helping. And what he did too is he made me feel like I was valuable. He's like, oh, you're doing so much for the company, you're doing a great thing, you're helping me out, and you're, of course, we'll compensate you for this. And I wasn't looking for that, but he said that. And he said, you need to make sure you buckle up your seatbelt, make sure you drive carefully, I'm responsible for you, the company's responsible for you. So the thing was, he was like super official, super kind, and all this stuff makes you feel like he's telling you to be careful, don't be unsafe, don't get into an unsafe area. If you're in an unsafe area, we'll find another place that's safe for you to go, and a store that's safe, or whatever. And it was like a goose chase, finding one of these things that was open, and finally we did, in a big store, or a big convenience store that was in a busy area. And by this point, gosh, it was probably after 1 a.m. It's just, I look back at it, how effing ridiculous this all was. So anyway, it takes a little bit to deposit this money. I end up depositing this money. So then he's like, head back to the store. You've done a great job. And I figure, okay, I'm going to head back to the store. He's going to tell me what to do to close the store since we had to do this, what I should leave for the GM to take care of it. And the thing with the GM is he had said that he was tied up in this too. And maybe that's why I didn't call him, because before I even left the store, he said, the GM's also talking, or the FedEx guy had told me the GM was also trying to take care of this on a conference call, and there was a whole thing with that kind of led me off trying to call him, or thinking about really calling him, even though I still should have anyway. I mean, what was the worst that was going to happen? He was going to tell me it was a scam, But I didn't. So anyway, I drive back to the store, and I had to go across town, so it took a little bit to get back to the store. Get in there, think everything's going to be okay. This supposed FedEx guy calls back. It's supposed to be to confirm the payment's made. At first, he says everything's okay. Yeah, it's made. And then it seems like it's all over with. And what happens next? What do you think happens next? I mean, can you even guess? I mean, I don't know if any of you all have ever had something like this happen to you or anyone else. Probably not. But anyway, I'm drinking tea tonight. This is out of my Starbucks cup. But anyway, I'm back at the store, and the FedEx guy calls again, and he says, "Oh, there's a problem. Of course, there's a problem." And he says that you made the payment too late, it looks like, and now there's a fine. And if you don't, because actually, let me go back a little bit. The payment we made was supposed to be a partial payment they were going to take. And then in the morning, they were going to take the full payment. But now what he's saying is that we paid it too late. There's a fine now. So you either got to pay all of it, or if you don't pay all of it, we're just going to cancel the order. So now they're going back and forth, and they're pretty good at this. I will admit that the owner guy's acting irritated. He says, "Can you talk him, Jeremy? Can you talk him into trying to waive this fee? Is there anything we can do?" And they go back and forth on that. And the FedEx guy acts irritated, says, "No, we can't. You've had so long to pay this, and we can't. We're going to have to cancel it." The owner acts irritated and worried. And then he asks me, and I'm sure you'll start shaking your head, and look, I shake my head too and still feel completely dumb over it, but he asked me if I can get into this safe. And he says some stuff, a lot of word salads. I mean, they do this to scammers, you know. He says a lot of stuff as to why, you know, he's the owner, but he don't have all the information to each store. He don't have all the safe codes. He don't want to bother the GM now because the GM had been up most of the night helping deal with it. Now he's got to deal with more the next day. You don't want to wake him up. He's done went to bed. So let's don't bother him. Let's don't wake anybody up like the regional manager. Look around the office, see if you can find a safe code. Of course, I can't. I'm convinced this is the owner. As crazy as it sounds, that I was still not catching on. And he has me. This is why I say it's like you can be just hypnotized under a damn spell. Looking back on it, it seems like that, because for the life of me, I couldn't catch on. I did eventually, but still not till I did more damage. I luckily did not get in the safe, but end up letting this guy convince me to grab the fire hydrant and start beating on the safe. And then he's trying to look up codes for this safe because he has me give him the name of it to see if we can get in it. Thank goodness we never got in it. None of that stuff worked. And luckily the fire hydrant didn't blow up on me. Luckily none of that happened. But what finally snapped in my head, as crazy as it sounds, what finally snapped in my head to catch on is he started to get irritated. He started to chastise me. He started to kind of come down on me. I'm not strong enough. I'm not beating on it hard enough. Don't you have tools? Don't you have he was coming down on me for not having tools in my car or things that I could use to get into this thing, because I don't carry stuff in my car. I don't like working on my car. I like other people to do it. Like if I have a flat tire, I'll call roadside assistance on my insurance to take care of that. So people can look at stuff like that or however they want, but I'm glad I didn't have anything in my car, because I was still thinking this guy was the owner. And it's just so stupid, but in my mind, you know, I'm like, wow. So finally, though, he kept doing this, and my phone was going dead. So I go outside, I sit in the car for a minute, because the phone was at 1%, and I lost his call, and that's when it dawned on me. because of the way he had been acting. And for some reason, my stomach just suddenly dropped. I'm sitting there at like 3 in the morning in my car. I'm like, what the what am I doing? What has this guy got me doing? I said, this is a bunch of bullshit. I was like, this is a scam. This is a damn, scam. And I was like, oh my God. I was so upset. And of course he was trying to call me back, but I knew at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to have to call when something like that happens, or we have money issues or anything. I was like, I got to call my regional manager and wake her up. And I thought for sure, yeah, my job is cooked, and should be. I just felt like, you know what? I call her and say, hey, I'm at the store. And I said, I have been taken for money. I said, I didn't realize it just now. I said, I feel like a effing idiot. And I don't know what to say. She's like, oh, what did they get you for? And I told her 700, and she's like, oh, but she's like, it's horrible. She told me it happened to another employee before. I don't know, that they probably caught on before I did with what I did with the safe. But I told her all of that, and I said, I just feel stupid. I said, I just could not catch on. It's like I was under some spell. I said, I just believed him. And she said, well, let me guess. He was probably nice to you for a long time. He's probably telling you to be careful. He's probably telling you he's responsible for you. I said, yeah. And I said, there was 2 of them, and they acted official. And she said, but she was saying she thought we had it wrote down in places that if somebody like that called, or somebody said they were the manager, that don't talk to them. But I couldn't remember seeing anything like that anywhere. And if we did have it, I don't think we had it in clear sight. Not to excuse myself of falling for it the way I did. But in any case, I said, if we do, I said, we may have it wrote down somewhere. I just couldn't remember. And I said, they just sounded so official. And she said, well, it can happen to the best of us. Because, I told her, I said, I feel stupid. And if I'm fired, I totally understand. I said, I didn't know who the owner was. And she told me his name. I said, I had no idea. And she said, the thing is, if he called, he would be happy if he just hung up on him, because he'd know you all were being diligent against stuff. So anyway, after all of this, she said, I'm not going to take any action, but I can't tell you what the owner's going to say. It'll be on him. But she said, just because they like me, that's the thing. I think that's the whole thing about it all. They like me. I'm always at work. It's really the first job I've cared about at all in a long time, because they treat me good. And I haven't worked for management like this in a very long time. And yes, it's in an adult store. That's why I was saying life has a sense of humor, the way it works. I've worked at places that claim they're Christian this, Christian that, they're about values, they're about whatever, and they're totally gossiping, backstabbing, sleeping with everybody, doing all kinds of awful stuff. The managers are crazy, and here it's just not been like that. And I think that's what they looked at, that I do a good job for them. And yeah, my common sense was severely lacking. I kept saying I'm harebrained. A lot of times I am harebrained. I feel like I am. And, I just do, because I've done things in my life that have been chaotic, crazy, sometimes knowing what I'm doing, but other times not. And like I said, is there a metaphysical element to things like this too sometimes? Even me and my GM were talking about that the other day, how it's like, are we living in some sort of matrix? Is there an element of how people can just kind of pull a veil over you sometimes, and you just fall for whatever, and then you snap out of it. That's how it was for me that night. But in any case, I had to, after all that, still had to go back in the store, straighten stuff up, still had to do a report, write in the report what had happened to me, that I lost that money, had to write a police report for the GM in the morning to give to the police. Come home, it's like 4:35 in the morning before I get home. And I go to work the next day, and I tell you, I didn't want to show my face. I mean, would you want to show your face after that? It's like, it was hard to even talk about this, but I'm talking about this because this world, I mean, how screwed up is this world? I guess that's why I'm talking about it, because this could happen, really could happen to anybody. These people wouldn't be doing this stuff if they didn't make a profit from it. If they didn't make money from it, they wouldn't take the time to do these things, running these scams. So anyway, I do go to work. I know that's the right thing to do. Of course it'd be a red flag if I didn't go to work. They'd probably think I did do something. But I was just embarrassed, But I go in, and my GM and assistant manager's waiting, and they're nice. They just listen to me talk about it. And I tell them, I said, I feel so stupid. My assistant manager's like, yeah, but you've talked about before how you worked at chaotic places, how your management that you're used to working for in places have always done crazy things. They've been not good to their employees, so you probably would think a manager would call in the middle of the night and do things like that. I said, not to make that a sole defense or anything, but yeah, you're right. I said, most places I work, the management does do crazy stuff and things you wouldn't think they would do, and they lie. I've worked for a lot of habitual liars in management at places, and narcissists, people just. So yeah, I think you can get a mindset that, who knows what management of this company's like. I don't know. I haven't been working there except since mid-November. But she said that, and they just said the same thing my regional manager said they're probably not going to do anything. The owner would make that decision. Everything went as normal. My GM joked with me and said, hey, things happen. No, most people would not have taken it as far as you. They would have snapped out of it. We kind of laughed about it. I said, yeah, it's true. He said, but shit happens. You're not the first one to be naive to certain things and fall like that. So I clocked in and worked. Right after that happened, I just got right back up. It's almost like they liked me enough to say, hey, you know what? You fell down. We're just going to pick you right back up. And you're here. Go back to work. And I did. And I joked with, they had me train a new person. Had me train another person right after that. And I don't know what to think about that. I guess that's why I've cared more about this job, where I haven't cared about a job because of being treated poorly in places. And I'm still not thrilled about going to a job. I still have issues. I still have problems with wanting to be isolated. I'm dealing with a lot of things, and there's some things I haven't talked about. And, there may come a point here soon. I'll talk about other things on here. I've talked about depression and such, but I deal with a lot of things in therapy, which I've been going since last July. And good thing was last Saturday, I got to go to therapy 2 days later after this event happened. I was able to tell my therapist, and that's when she told me, She said, look, this could happen to anybody. She said, I was almost scammed about something and somebody telling me I had something in Russia. She didn't go into all the detail, but she was just like, they had me convinced I had some kind of product or something that was mine in Russia. And then she said, I'm thinking, well, she said, I wasn't thinking. She said, my partner told me, well, why would you have something there? She had somebody to buffer that, but she was just saying, if I didn't, I could have fell for it. But why would I have something there? And it just made me feel a little better. And I was beating on a safe with a fire extinguisher. I mean, it's just, it's insane, it's just, it's utterly just, crazy, just crazy. But, anyway, maybe, some of you have been through such a thing. There's a lot of scams, and it's interesting. I don't fall for the other ones. Like, I get those things on my phone. They'll say, oh, you have a FedEx delivery, or click on this, or a UPS, and I'll know, oh no, I haven't ordered anything. And understood in my mind those are scams, things like that. But I guess this thing, not being used to working alone, and they set it up with two people and in such an elaborate way. I'm just disappointed I didn't catch on till, he had me trying to get into that save. That's what made me feel so crazy. And then made me think, oh man, it's like black magic. It's like a veil's pulled over you, and then this energy, you just don't know what's up or down. Now, the other part of this that did make me a little angry, the last part of this was the police. And it's understandable that they would want to hear from me, want to do an interview. And my GM warned me, he said, I got to give you this policeman's name or detective or whatever that has the report. He wants to interview you, but I warn you, he's an a-hole, basically. He wasn't very nice. That's okay. So he prepared me, because my management and everything, of course, was fine and everything was said and done, but I had to deal with this policeman. And yeah, he got me to where we had words, because he was accusational. Basically what happened was he did the interview on the phone, which I'm glad I didn't have to go to the police department. And he was fine, like when I was telling him the story up to, I'd already wrote a report, but he wanted me to go through it again. When I got up to getting back to the store and beating on the safe, and I could understand a little skepticism, but it's just the way he came at me. He was very condescending, and it's like he set out to make me feel really stupid and bad. And he's like, well, what I don't get is why you would start destroying company property, why you wouldn't catch on at that point. I said, look, what do you want me to tell you? It was stupid. I said, I was naive. I said, I don't know. I said, I have no reason for that. I said, but I don't appreciate you coming down on me thinking I had something to do with it, because I didn't. All I can tell you is it was dumb. I know it was effing dumb. This is what I told him, basically. I was really upset at this point. I said, this guy sounded official. And I said, I just didn't catch on until he started being mean, and he started belittling me for not being able to get into it. That's when I caught on. I said, I wish I'd caught on sooner. I understand why somebody might think, how can you not catch on? He said, well, I'm not being condescending. I said, but you understand I have to ask the question, right? He tried to backtrack after I reacted the way I did. I said, he said, well, let me ask you this. Are they keeping you employed there? Do you have to pay the money back? I said, no, I don't. And I said, yes, they are keeping me employed. And I think that's when he realized, well, they must like me, because they're not getting rid of me, and they're okay. They're done with the situation. So that was it. And he said, well, okay, you probably won't hear from me again, but Anyway, that situation annoyed me, just by the way he acted. Not because he was doing his job. I expect that, but the way he went about talking down to me. So yeah, I fought back with him. But anyway, if you guys have a story, let me know. You can always leave it in the comments. But I guess I'm going to go for now, and I will talk to you all later on. Bye.